Hey Boy Meets World fans, thanks for being here. Welcome back. We're talking about episode 14 by airdate, not by how it is listed on Disney Plus, by airdate and also on the DVDs, the B Team of Life. So let's get into it. Corey gets put on the B team on basketball, just as he was saying how awful that would be to be on the B team. Right after they saw that Minkus also got put on the B team. When Corey says Alvin Einstein and Mr. Feeney repeats it and says, "This is my life." Oh, I remember the working out craze in the 90s. Eric is illustrating it well in this episode, trying to get all buff for the girls in high school. I can't wait to hear Will's critique of his acting in this scene in particular. And Corey's like, "I'm beginning to see that the world doesn't revolve around me." Morgan's, "I'm a princess." And Corey, "Yeah, and I had lunch with Elvis." I don't know, that whole line that Alan said to Corey with the pink tutu princess stuff on the table. "Did you kill and eat a Vegas showgirl?" What? And freaking Eric's like, "Dad, give me $36,000, please." "Sure. Can you break a 50,000? Corey, he illustrated the middle child syndrome pretty well, making up a story to get attention and making his family realize, hey, you're always busy with Morgan, you're always busy with Eric, which again, I want to hear what Will has to say, because this time it is acknowledged that the dad spends a lot of time with Eric at the store, so kind of interesting. I want to hear what Will has to say about this. Alan just said, "I spend more time with Eric. Corey doesn't think I care about him." Interesting. I like Amy's, "I think he's going through middle pause." Is that a scientific term? It is kind of cute how cute Minkus is about being on the basketball B team. Second reference to Kill, when Corey comes home to the empty house, turns on the TV, and it talks about how the mom whose daughter didn't sell enough cookies and she killed the whole troop. And Corey's like, "There's a mom that cares." I always love when Corey calls Mr. Feeney to get him to walk away from his chicken that he's grilling outside, and then steals it, and then it goes into the flower bed, and Corey's fake crying to Mr. Feeney. I was glad Mr. Feeney was like, "Have some dignity, man." I will always love Amy and Alan as the mom and dad of the 90s. They had such a good, back and forth. And, hey, Alan acknowledged Eric today. It's kind of an insult about him getting a life, but he did acknowledge him. And Morgan's like, "You want to know who's in my room telling me a story? Nobody." I like that Alan's like, "Just grab my face and say, 'Hey, Dad.'" And then Morgan does it too. But see, even Corey said his parents are pretty good. See, they are good. I like the end credit scene with Mr. Feeney being a daredevil behind the wheel. Okay, so we're talking about the podcast for episode 14 by the air date, which is on the DVDs, as well as the list is also on imdb.com. So we're talking about that podcast first, and then I'm going to talk about the guest podcast at the end of this. So first and foremost, I didn't realize that Danielle has a hair care line, but that totally makes sense. And her dry shampoo sounds really interesting. I love how Will was saying other people's picadillos. "I'm sitting in peanut butter." And I'd like to know how he read scripts successfully in the shower. That's really impressive. And Will, I can totally agree. I wasn't blown away with the new Charlie's Angels myself. So I can agree with you on that one. I was kind of wondering if this episode was older because there was an extra friend, and and Danielle wasn't in it. There was a lot of things that definitely did not fit with the progression of the show thus far, even though we technically aren't that far into it. And Heather, he mentioned Heather. That's something that I actually missed. I didn't catch on to that, but Will is fabulous with the details, so I'm not surprised. Regardless, great acting in this episode, as they said. And oh my God, Danielle, okay, so your brother's story about getting diarrhea when y'all were little and then that ruining you being out of school for a day and getting to go to Disneyland and instead you had to go back to school. That's awful, but I'm sure your brother does not love you telling this story. I can imagine that's not ideal for him. Okay, so once again, Feeny is the teacher of all. And surprise-a-rama was a really odd thing coming from Sean, so that also really points out that this is definitely an earlier episode. Okay, so Will pointed out that in a later episode, Topanga's character is kind of like checking Will out or Eric out or something, and I totally don't remember this, so I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for that. That's really interesting. It's like an Easter egg. And I didn't realize that when Alan says Schwinn, it was him getting something stuck in his throat, but upon hearing the story, it made me laugh just as hard as they did in remembering it. Once again, Rusty and Betsy were so good in this scene, and Will was good. I think everybody played so well in this episode, and they just came together really beautifully. And of course, you know, Corey did his lines wonderfully. You know, they're right. The magazine that Sean brings to Corey was a very nice gesture. And so did you all realize that that is the behind the scenes phrase that they had for years? The second string does not go to the away games. That was the phrase that they said behind the scenes for years to each other, even though some remembered, some didn't. I have to say, I did always think it was weird that Corey, you know, was alone in the house. He did great in those scenes, absolutely. But I have to agree with Will. Once again, I do wonder, okay, how did his parents not know he wasn't at the game? And then Sean was like, well, logistics, drive time, you know, sitcom logistics. That's what it is. Okay. So spatchbacked chicken with the chicken. Will and your fun terminology. Will has much knowledge. He is kind of like Mr. Squirrels in a way. Mr. Plays with Squirrels. I'm sorry, excuse me. And like, it just the details on the cooking the chicken and then not covering the grill when they left. Safety first, people. Articles about sneakers from Boy Meets World. That's a fun fact I didn't know anything about. And I will agree, the whole scene about Will coming in saying the sixth graders were checking him out or thought he was cool. You know, it's weird because I always felt that was kind of weird, but I knew it wasn't meant that way. So it was like, okay, we just rolled with it. I too think it's always an interesting point that Corey recognized that some parents are just not as stellar as others. And definitely, Danielle, I agree with you. Some mothers are much more hands-on than others, as the Goldbergs would call it, smother. Okay, and Will, I like your idea that the nod to the gremlin that Mr. Feeny was driving could be a nod to Wayne's World. I kind of like that. You and your details. Trivia with no multiple choice? Come on, Danielle. And it is funny that the Cali kid that doesn't know how cold things got, aka Ryder, got the answer. Okay, so let's talk about the interview with Christine Lincoln. I've always loved Christine Lincoln. I was a step-by-step fan myself. And of course, I loved Hollywood Darlings. So before she came on, I want to talk about the hilarity that ensued with Will in particular. Captain America in Spider-Man underwear is Will's tradition for flying to and fro on his trips. And it does not surprise me that he has capes. I can completely see this. Again, this is a very Mr. Plays with Squirrels kind of thing. So the question is, was that character always in Will? Or did Eric's character bring that out of Will? Like, where was it? Was it art imitating life or life imitating art? Funderwear. I do like that word. And I want to say thank you to Will for mentioning the Bob Ross situation, because his family does get screwed on all of the royalties, because his family got screwed out of everything that is sold under Bob Ross's name now. So you are not supporting his family. You are supporting a soulless corporation. So Danielle apparently needs to drink now when she flies with Will, because she will know what underwear he is wearing. And I kind of loved it when Ryder said that actors are, what did he say? He said they are suspicious people, but he really meant superstitious. I don't know. I think it's both. Will's lucky hat. Nothing bad will happen to him if he wears it, but then he realized it will. So he stopped. That is massive progress. That is self-actualization. That is realizing some shit, man. Bravo. And rest in peace, Chris Farley. I never knew he had so many rituals. That was an interesting tidbit from Will. Thumb rings were a huge thing back in the day. I can definitely attest to that. And I used to do the filling up gas thing to try to get it to the even numbers. Sometimes I'll still catch myself doing that, but now I gave up on that. So I think it's funny when people like really try to do that, but I just think it's a thing. I think a lot of people do that. Okay, so somehow, even upon all my rewatching, I forgot that Christine Lincoln was in a couple episodes of Boy Meets World, or she was in the Getting Hitched episode, and I totally forgot about this. Like, slipped my mind. Oh my God, I would love to see the pictures that Christine's mom took of all their events. I bet that was just like a treasure trove of memories right there. Ryder blocking out the paintball day does not surprise me in the slightest. I did love the step aerobics by step. That's great. Very, very clever, right? And I can totally see Danielle loving paintball. Okay, that is not even a question. Miller Boyette was a big deal back in the day. I remember that name, like, yeah, so they ain't lying about that. That was big time. And Christine Lakin's big break really did sound like Kismet. It really, really was funny that, you know, it's like, man, you ain't kidding. And oh my God, I just want to say Danielle's like segue back from Ryder's story back to Christine's story of getting robbed was so Topanga. Like, again, where was Topanga always in you, Danielle? Did she bring it out of you? Like, where? But like, seriously, that was so funny. She's like, okay, did you get robbed? Okay, well, let's talk back to Christine about her story. Will is definitely security, man. He was very into, did you have security? What kind of security did you get afterwards? And it sounds like everyone was very supportive on Christine Lincoln's set of Step by Step after their robbery, which is really cool because that doesn't always happen in Hollywood. And the crazy thing is when she was talking about her co-star Brandon getting shot, I do vaguely recall this kind of 90s drama, although I did not recall that he was shot 6 times. And I mean, the fact that he lived is amazing. But I can completely see why at that point after that, he just did not want to be in the spotlight anymore. Christine going from Atlanta to LA, one side of the country to the other. Oh God, like, that is a lot. That's a constant thing. That is a lot. And it's so funny that Danielle's California school didn't really care about her being on the show. But back in Atlanta for Christine's, they were pretty much all fans, it sounds like. So it's really funny to see that kind of contrast. Okay, so Stacey Keenan, the other one of the stars from Step by Step, went from a child actor turned criminal prosecutor. Bravo. Atlanta in a water park in March being a commercial that Christine Lakin did. Yeah, I bet her lips were freaking blue. That's some good acting, Christine. Brava. Okay, so I just want to let you, if y'all ever see this on the podcast, like seriously, there's no shame in talking about food. Food is life and good food is next level. So like hearing about craft services, I'm freaking here for it. Okay, thank you for the fun fact about MASH there, Will. I swear he's so full of information. I love it. Alan Alda, when operating and looking down at the body, it would just be a piece of felt with the dialogue written on it. I love that. So apparently everybody dated Andrew Keegan back in the day, and I believe this. And everybody had crushes on the Home Improvement boys. JTT for me. Hell, Danielle dated him. Lucky girl, and he was lucky too. Let's be real. I mean, they're both beautiful people. Okay, so I have to wonder, Will saying that he did not get an invite to Disney when the Boy Meets World crew went to Disney, and Stacey Keenan, his freaking crush, was on that episode, and he didn't get to go. So I have to wonder, was this planned? Were they worried that, Will would do something? I don't know. I love that Christine Lakin got to work on the Goldbergs, because I also really love that show too. And I love that she told the story that she got this call to do this the day after she gave birth. And I love what her husband said. What did he say? I will make sure that this child lives. Bravo, sir. And Hollywood Darlings, again, I'm going to say was funny. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. And another podcast. What is it? Keenan and Lakin give you deja vu. I'm here for it. Christine Lakin has always just struck me as a very real person. And, Danielle has pretty much confirmed that. So I love that. And, it was such a fun interview. I laughed a lot. I enjoyed it. And she should definitely come back for at least her episode, which is much later. But, if not before then, that was a fun interview. But yes, that's it for this video. Thanks for hanging in there. Feel free to like and subscribe. Love you all. Video dismissed.